Hello and welcome to On the Move, a show about what's going on in Hampton Roads featuring community leaders who are moving the region forward. I'm Thomas Becker with Hampton Roads Transit. This year, HRT celebrates 25 years of service. On October 1st, 1999, two organizations serving different communities and separated by a waterway officially united in the nation's first voluntary merger of transit agencies. It was on that day that Tidewater Regional Transit, TRT, and Peninsula Transit, Pentran, merged to create Hampton Roads Transit. Before then, TRT provided transit service in the cities of Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, and Virginia Beach. Pentran's buses served Hampton Roads and Newport News. Together, the merged agency offered more clout, better connectivity, cost savings, and was a shining example of regional cooperation that would make possible the advent of the light rail, cross-tunnel bus service, and other modes of transportation. Joining us today to reminisce and reflect is Claudia Bolitho, who served in a number of roles over 35 years. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you very much.
Take us back to that merger. What was your role prior to 1999?
Okay. Prior to 1999, I was part of the management team for Pentran. I was the director of development and marketing. We were a very small agency in comparison to TRT, so we wore multiple hats, and so it was a large department, but we had a small staff, and we did a lot. So planning, marketing, sales, advertising sales, transit development, project management, all fell under my role. And then as the merger was getting started, I was part of the merger team, working along with other management staff to go through that process.
So when that first came up, and there was a lot of discussions, there were a lot of deliberations. It was not easy. What was it like before the merger, just knowing you were part of that management team and what was coming?
It was exciting, just the possibilities of being able to do the merger and become a larger agency and have a better role in the region. So there was a buzz going around about and on all levels of staff, maintenance, operations, and the admin staff, about just the possibilities and how was it going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it was an exciting time. Before
that time, the only bus service was like a Greyhound bus. There was no transit connectivity, if you will.
Exactly. And however, Pentran and TRT did establish Crossroads service even before the merger. Okay. It was called Crossroads. Now it's called the Max, I believe, Max Express or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was rebranded to the Max, but originally it was called Crossroads service, and we worked together as a not as a merged entity, but as two separate entities to try to promote and facilitate transportation through the tunnels. And so it was just originally, it was 3 routes, and it took off slowly, and then we were able to, of course, expand it once the merger happened.
What are your memories of the merger? What was it like, during that merger and during that process of what would be a historic agreement?
Sure. Well, it was a process, that's for sure. It was a long process. It was 5 years, basically, of negotiations and determining the differences, the things that were similar. There were factions among the commissioners as to, if we were going to do it or not, who the manager was going to be. There were lots of issues, a lot of frustrations as well. But we were persistent, and that was, there was a definite desire to move ahead, even though we had some difficulties and it almost didn't happen type instances. It's like, oh, what are we going to do now? But it went through. We worked through the process.
What were some of the challenges on the workforce level?
Well, the main thing is that the policies and procedures were different. There was 2 separate union contracts that were not similar in many ways. There are just organizational differences, financial differences, lots of things.
Different buses too?
Different buses, yeah, exactly. And so just working through that and determining what we could work with and do right away, and what had to wait a couple of years. Like the union contract, we had to wait till both of them expired before we could actually come up with one union contract. So that, developing a team of people to work through that process. We had a team from HR that worked through all the organizational issues, and then we had a finance team that basically worked through all that. So establishing, the different organizational teams to work through all those issues, I think was the best thing that we could have done.
And you had your hands in a lot of things, because over 35 years with the previous agency and combined agency, you were planning, worked in planning, transit development administrator, director of communications marketing, records management.
Right.
What were some of your favorite times, positions during during those times?
I think they all were great because I had wonderful mentors. When I first started working there in 1977, no, I correct myself, 1979, I had worked for 2 years with the City of Newport News as a planner, and then was able to get this job through a friend who had the job previously and recommended me to the boss. And so I really knew nothing about public transportation, truly nothing. I don't think I'd ever even ridden a bus, a Pentran bus. And so it was, but I knew planning, I knew that process. And because I was recommended, Al Richards was my first boss, and he gave me the opportunity. He was the type of person, you had a good idea, he let you run with it, handle it. That was his famous phrase. He would just wave his hands and say, handle it. And so I learned by doing. And so that opportunity from the beginning really helped me with the rest of my career, because I have to say that all the subsequent people that I worked for, all the executive directors that I worked for, became my mentors and allowed me the opportunity to just keep going, and learn new things and try new things and come up with my own ideas. And so it was great.
You became hooked on transit.
I did. I became an advocate. I had a passion for public transportation as a service. And that I was hooked, and I spent 35 years. Obviously, I loved it because I spent 35 years doing it.
We mentioned planning, but public transit's more. It's community engagement. It's social service.
Yes.
There's a lot to it that gets from a career perspective that
Sure.
you can do.
And I did that, because, like I said, Pentran was a small organization, so we had a few people doing a lot of things, and we did a lot of community relations, PR, advertising. We were out there all the time. And then, of course, when we became HRT, we became bigger. We even brought more staff on to do that kind of thing. So having a variety of things to do was always exciting, kept me going. And then, of course, the opportunity to establish a records management program was a big deal. We didn't have that at all. And I kind of was called the resident historian because probably history was my favorite subject in school, even though my major was planning in college. But I kind of became the historian for the agency, and so records management was like perfect, a path to follow and establish all the, the records from the beginning of both agencies.
You touched on earlier, but what is it that kept you going for the many years?
I liked my jobs. I liked the people that I work with, and public transportation was my passion.
Great. How do you feel looking back today, going from two separate agencies into what is today a regional multimodal transit agency? Do you think the vision of that merger has been realized?
I truly do. The whole concept of combining was to be able to increase our role on a regional scale, establish more recognition on the state level as well as on the federal level, to be able to get more money for our projects and to be able to expand. And obviously we were successful because we were able to build a light rail project. We were one of the smallest, projects, but we got the funding because we had strong advocacy and governmental relations on all levels. And so that, I think, efficiencies of scale, economies of scale, I guess is what they call it, was achieved originally, but as we got bigger, of course, we had to bring more people and resources in. But I think overall, we did what we wanted to, yes.
On this show, we have a lot of guests, and we talk about the region and regional cooperation. And as I said in the intro, this is like a shining example of that. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think we, when you look at all of the regional organizations, or even some that are not regional, like the Chambers of Commerce, they're separate. Could they be combined as one? Possibly. Maybe not. But we were a good example of being able to do that because we had, we were in the business of providing public transportation. And yes, we have tunnels, but it's a good opportunity to use the tunnels to get people back and forth.
Absolutely. Claudia, thank you for
Sure.
taking us back down memory lane and reflecting on what was really then a very historic agreement.
It was.
Yeah.
It truly was. Yes, it was a privilege to be able to work through that and be part of that.
Thank you again for joining
Sure.
us.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us for On the Move. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss another episode. Thank you.